I'll be talking about RadarFi. So wherever money is, scams follow, and that's exactly what is true with cryptocurrency as well. So I'm presenting a real-time security layer for all Web3 solutions that are out there. Now, you would ask, why do we need it? So let's look at what exactly is the problem. So if you look at the money that was laundered across from 2018 till 2021, it's a huge amount. And it's a good enough share in the market. Now, why do we need it specifically only for the DeFi space? And what is the contribution of DeFi in this case? So if you look at the numbers, right, they're staggering. If you look at 2021 number, 72% of the money laundered was coming alone from DeFi protocols. And there are multitude of reasons for this. The first one being that, growth is high. There are as many as 40x increase in the number of unique addresses. So there are more and more people coming in, as well as more and more scammers coming in. Also, if you look at the core cause, it's the vulnerabilities that are there in the code. We have multiple of smart contracts running, and that's where all the problem arises. Also, 21% of all the hacks that happened in 2021 took advantage of these code exploitations. So that's where RadarFi comes in. What is RadarFi and what all it has to offer? So it sits as a security layer in all your DeFi solutions, DeFi protocols, and dApps. It helps you with transaction monitoring across multiple chains. It also helps you in auditing your smart contracts in a way without even using your source code. And the third thing is it also helps you identify any crime-related crypto transactions, which could be related to terrorism. It could also be related to child pornography and other major issues. So let's look at each of them. So how does the security transaction monitoring happen? So what my solution does is it monitors transaction across multiple chains and then uses machine learning algorithms on top of that data that is coming from the chain to flag those transactions as high, medium, or low risk, or no risk at all. So these are like 3 different categories that you get so that you can, as an exchange or as a DeFi protocol or as a dApp, can decide how you want to deal with such transaction in your system. So basically it caters to every problem that any DeFi app could have. Not only that, you also can have, it'll be a dashboard that helps you understand which addresses these transactions are originating from. You can block those transactions or choose to let it pass through your system. Now, the third thing is basically smart contract auditing. Now, all of the solutions that are there in the market are using static code analyzers. So they just look at your code and that's how it's done. But the major problem is patterns will evolve, scammers will evolve. Then your system might fail. That's why a machine learning sort of a solution helps. And how I'm doing it, my solution sits on top of your client. It watches for all the transactions that are taking place in between of your smart contracts. And then it flags your transactions, basically, whether it's a harmful transaction or it's a benign transaction. And the potential goal of this solution is to prevent reentrancy hacks as of now. And why it's such a big problem is because a major chunk of fraudulent losses are coming from reentrancy hacks, and they are all originating from simple vulnerabilities that are present in your smart contracts. And the good thing is that I don't need to use a lot of data. I'm only utilizing metadata of the transactions and balance data that are interacting between smart contracts. And I want to discuss certain metrics of how my model is currently performing. So I do have an accuracy of 94%, which is better than what the other static code analyzers are doing in the market, like Slither and Securify. And I also have tried to reduce the false positive rate, which is something that everybody wants to reduce in the DeFi space. Going forward, I also want to discuss a further feature of the platform, which is reducing the crime. And basically, you'll have a dashboard giving you details on what terrorist organizations can do. Now, coming to why do I even need this solution, right? DeFi market is big. If you look at the lending and DEXs market, it's taking the major share of the market, and that's where my solution is targeted at, to have every DEX, every dApp integrate this solution and make their space more safe. And how I want to market the solution is that I integrate it with potential dApps and DEX exchanges. And to give you more idea on it, I like to discuss my business model first of how I want to do it. I'll start it with a freemium service where people can come and try my transaction monitoring tool. And when it goes to advanced, I also have the auditing feature available to them. And in an enterprise solution, I'm giving them a complete suite along with a real-time customer support as well, so that they can set it up as easily as possible. Comparing to what is there in the market, obviously, there's always someone ahead of you. So I do have competition, but where where I do come in is that my solution is more real time. I am what I've tried is I've reduced the data consumption, so my solution is more faster. I'm not utilizing the entirety of the blockchain of data, but I've reduced it to metadata and balanced data. So comparing to FOTA, which is the biggest competition right now in this space, I do have transaction screening across multiple chains. That's what sets me apart from all of them. Coming to what my roadmap looks like, I currently have transaction screening and secure smart contract auditing already in place. So I plan to roll out the dashboards and also roll out more vulnerability features for people. So just to close the session today, using data from blockchain requires high computational cost, right? And instead of incurring that, I wanted to bring my community together, have them get the data from the chain and monetize them using tokens. And I'm thinking of using Ocean Protocol for that for now, so that I can bring a community together, have a Discord community where they can come, learn about security, help me take this product forward. That's all. A little bit about myself. I currently work as a software dev at Goldman, and I've been working in the fraud and risk space for the past 2.5 years. I've worked with a couple of projects at Goldman and American Express, and that's about me. Open for questions.
Any questions?
Sorry, did you say your smart contract auditing does not require source code? It looks at on-chain source code?
So what I'm doing is that when the smart contract is interacting with other smart contracts, there'll be transactions in between, right? That transaction always comes with metadata and balance data. So I'm using the gas fee that is being used in those transactions, what is the call stack depth, and I'm also using how the gas fee is changing across those transactions. So I'm not utilizing the source code at all, because utilizing the source code would be before something is deployed. Now, I looked at all of the solutions that are there and understood that the false positive rate is very high there, right? So a lot of the times there are vulnerabilities that are identified which are actually not vulnerabilities, and most of the time you don't know the attack would happen until you have simulated it. So my solution is more on the side of when the simulation is happening. So I'm getting data from that chain, and my solution sits as a monitor of those transactions that are happening through that smart contract and detect. So I'm using very lightweight models to make it more faster. So I've not delved into anything deep learning. It's all basic machine learning. But I've abstracted all my features so that, even if someone gets to know, they can't do much around it. Because anytime you introduce any security solution, scammers will find a way around. So I didn't want to use features as is.
Cool.
All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. Oh, you had a question? Yeah, it's fine. We can take one more question.
No, just wanted to check, like, specifically for the transaction screening and compliance problem. Like, Chainalysis is almost like a standard API now, right? Even
Yes.
like Tornado Cash and all use OFAC APIs from Chainalysis. Like, what makes you think that, like, just to understand, what makes your product like the magnitude better than Chainalysis that people would incur that switching cost to move out of?
Right. So Chainalysis is like one of the biggest player in this space. They have a lot of data, but what differentiates my transaction screening from there is, firstly, they have single chain solutions. And whenever they are going multi-chain, the market they are catering to is frauds that are happening agnostic to that chain, right? I am going multiple chain. If one ID is doing a fraud or one address is involved in a fraud in a chain, I'm also tracing it back to the other chain, because a common transaction pattern is people create hundreds of wallets across chain, transfer the money, and there's always a pattern associated when this fast movement of money happens. So that's where I come in. I combine multiple chains together to cater to it instead of working with chains in silos. So that's the major difference between the two.
Got it. Cool.
I see that you're going the B2B route by integrating with the products that
Right.
eventually I would, and the contracts that I would interact with. But was there a consideration made for, say, integrating it at a wallet level, where every time I interact with a contract, the status of its vulnerability is rather shown to me as an end user,
Right.
as opposed to something that I require to be inside that ecosystem can go ahead and.
Yes. So in order to cater to that kind of market is why I decided to have a community around, so that they become my data providers and I can have a bot that listens to my service and caters to users as well. So this bot basically watches the transactions of their wallets, and all of the data, fetching part from the chain. I don't have to incur that high operational cost to get it from the chain.
The line of my questioning was similar to what he was saying, because that switching cost is real, and without enough data and tagging, it may not be as useful for somebody to move from
Right.
what they currently use to something else. But on the flip side, a user honestly does not have as high a switching cost for
Right.
something like this, and maybe going community first, figuring out money streaming options for them to share data, to then build your ML models on it, may be a better GTM
Yes.
than the B2B approach.
All right.
Yeah, just wanted to understand the parameters you're just looking at with respect to benign and harmful transactions.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm using only the metadata and balance data. So what I'm looking at is what is the gas fee that is being exchanged across the transaction? What was the average call depth? Because if you look at reentrancy hacks specifically, how they happen is that basically they're calling back the same function and again to drain the other wallet of all their funds, right? So I did have a very large pool of features, but essentially they were not helping me at all. So only these 5 features, which are basically derived from what gas fees exchange, how the call depth looks like, is all I use right now, and it's still working better than the other things, because logically that's all that matters when you're trying to trace back such hacks. All right.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.